Hi, my name is Shivangi and I'm the Customer Solutions Manager here at Orgzit. So many a times in business workflows, the data depends on specific conditions. Now, for example, if I have my data and I have different data fields, in some particular condition, a particular data must can be required, and if a condition is not met, it may not be required. So here in Orgzit, we handle such conditions by a field attribute known as field condition. Using it, you can specify a set of conditions on which another field might be dependent. And you can also choose what action do you want to perform if a particular condition is met or not met. So I'll explain it to you with the help of an example to make you understand it better. Now, for example, I have an invoicing and order management workspace here, and I have a lot of data fields in it. Now, let's see how a field depends on another field. So I'll just open this create record form and I'll show you this section that I have here. So I have a tax details section here and there you can see that I have two data fields. One is tax applicable, which is a drop down field. It can have a value as either no or a yes. Now the second field that I have is tax rate, where I can manually enter what is the tax rate. Now here you can see that my tax rate is dependent on my tax applicable. Now what I want is that if the tax applicable is yes, then in that case my tax rate should be required. And if it is not applicable, then my tax rate is not at all required because the tax is not applicable. So this is what I was talking about here. Tax rate is dependent on the value of tax app. Whether it is required or not required, this particular action also depends on the value of tax applicable. So how can we handle this here in Orgzit? So we'll be handling it with the use of a field attribute known as field condition, and we will be using this field condition field attribute on tax rate. There we'll specify on what conditions what should happen to the tax rate data field. So let's go ahead and do. So the first step will be to move to the table manage page and go to the table field section to add this attribute. Here I will search for my tax rate data field. So here is my tax rate data field. I'll just click on edit, and here in the field attributes, I'll just add field condition. Now once I add the field condition, I can fill in the configuration here. Now here you can have multiple conditions or multiple dependencies as well. So here my only condition is that if my tax applicable value is yes, I want to perform a certain action, and if it is no, I want to perform a certain action. So let's fill in the dependency. You can choose the operation that you want to perform. Now in this case, I want to see that my data field tax applicable contains, and then you can also choose the value type. If it is a specific value that you want to compare it with, you can choose value. And if you want to compare it with the value stored in a particular data field, you can choose field and then choose the particular data field. So here I want to compare it with the value. So I'll just say value and specify it as yes. So now I want to see that if my tax applicable data field contains the value yes, then my tax rate data field should be required. Now here I can choose amongst these three different options. I can make it as a read-only data field, I can hide the data field, or I can make it as required. Now according to my condition, I'll make it as required. Now you can add multiple conditions here. If you want that multiple conditions should be met for this action to be performed, you can specify more conditions here. And if you want another action to be performed on the same data field, you can add a new field condition by clicking on this button here. So now what is the second dependency and what action has to be performed on the second dependency? Now the second dependency is that my tax applicable field is no. Then what should happen? So I'll just select the data field and I will again choose the operator as contains, and I will specify the value as no. Now if my tax applicable value contains no, then I want to hide this data field. So Like this, I have specified the two different dependencies and I have also specified the two different actions that I want to perform. So once it is done, you can click on done. Now you can submit this edit that you've made, and let's go back to see how this really works. So I'll just go back and now I'll create this form. Now let's see how this section works. Now when I enter and specify the tax applicable as no, the tax rate data field is completely hidden because it is not required and it is not relevant in this case. I've just hidden it. And for example, if I mention the tax applicable as yes, then you can see that the tax rate data field becomes a required data field. So in this way, you can use field conditions in your business workflows as per your requirement and put up conditions and choose different actions to for your data fields.